This is Ryan, and I'm just doing a vlog, one of my weekly drop-ins, and just to say hi. And I have a couple people I chat with here on Facebook and on YouTube and on MySpace, and I'm just giving a shout out to my people, my peeps. And I was just thinking about everything that's happened this week. It's been a great week, and it's been crazy. Barack Obama's brother George Obama gets busted in Kenya with marijuana. Just the week before and the week before that, on change.gov, marijuana legalization was the #1 question. Obama decided to ignore the #1 question and give money to abortionists and give money to a bunch of corporate bankers that are now giving $1 million bonuses to people, and there's all these things that he's been doing, which I'm glad he's active and he's in there doing something. That's great and all, but what is he doing? Is it helping us at all? Is it helping him? What about his brother in Kenya that just got busted and he's facing jail time? They took him to the prison there. Whether he's released, I don't know what the deal is there, but I know that they took him in and he was locked up, and it's a plant. It hasn't killed anybody. There's no reason for this. It's stupid, and I spend an awful lot of time on my websites. I spend a lot of time protesting things or complaining or bitching and moaning or praising something. I just like to get the message out. I like to be active. I like that our country has the opportunity to change the way we want it to. We've got a new president. He's wanting to help people. He hasn't been corrupted too much by Washington, or maybe he has. I hope that's not the case. And I think that the people actually have a possibility of getting their voice out and getting laws passed that we want to see passed. Where they work on these issues in the government. They have lobbyists, they have politicians, they have money, they have influence, they have all these things going around, and the president has the ability to veto things or to make executive orders of things. What if he just ended prohibition today? He could do that. What would happen? Well, we'd have money saved from not having to imprison people, police people, all that. You've heard this, yada, yada, yada. We wouldn't have to build prisons, billions of dollars worth of savings there. We would have to pay extra police, extra judges, whatever, yada, 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 yada. We would be saving people from poverty. I could go on and on here. It's just obvious that, these criminals, these so-called criminals that end up with possession of a plant, they're not hurting anybody. They end up in prison, they end up hardened criminals. They went in as some peace-loving hippie smoking pot, whatever, in his living room to himself, not hurting anybody, to a hardened prison, product that, has been, probably abused in some way by the system or by the inmates or by both, because he had a plant. And then he comes out on the outside, he's this hardened criminal, he's got these different perspectives on life, ways to make money, probably not necessarily legal, because he was in prison with criminals that were probably doing things that were illegal before they got there. So now he's got all these new ideas, he or she, his life changes because, he's in poverty now, he hasn't worked for so long, he's been in prison, he's had to probably lose his job and start over from scratch everywhere, and maybe he's defaulted on his student loans or something, and whatever. He's got a lot of problems. The people that pay these taxes that make him a criminal, that the government that he supports, that we support, would make someone a criminal for holding a plant, are now also having to pay the welfare for this guy and his kids, because he had to go to prison for a plant, and that took him out of his job, out of his life, out of his family, and screwed everything up for that whole family. It keeps the poor poor, because when a rich guy gets busted with pot, man, he gets out, whatever. He pays his fine, he hires a lawyer, so he gets the charge lowered, and then pays the fine and walks away. But with a poor person that doesn't really have access to a lawyer and stuff, they've got to keep these prisons going because that's a source of income for states and private companies. All these different people that build the prisons, these private contractors that run the prisons, and of course the states that get the revenue from these prisons. There's a lot of money to go around there, so they've got to keep people in prison. So the poor people that don't have the lawyers, that don't have the influence, they end up going to prison, jail, or whatever, as I myself had when I was a kid, for possession of marijuana. Simple possession. I wasn't selling. I wasn't beating anybody over the head with it. I wasn't, assaulting myself. I was, just possessing marijuana. And that was it. And that's what my charge was, possession of marijuana. Turned my life upside down. Between 3 different arrests from the time I was 16 till the time I was 19, I probably spent 2.5 years in jail, in and out, because I'd lose my driver's license, and then I'd get that kind of a ticket. And I'd still have to drive to work, so I'd get another ticket. And then I'd have that compounded by having, getting a ticket or going to jail for a bench warrant for not having paid my tickets, because at, some point they really stacked up. And, I didn't have a lot of support from my family. They didn't want a lot to do with me. I mean, they did help me with finances a couple of times, but, I was pretty much on my own at a very young age. And a lot of it was due to this, to being a criminal, to possessing marijuana, and going to jail for it, and having legal issues and social issues because of it. As a kid, as a harmless, unhardened criminal child, to somebody who at 13 went to juvenile hall and spent time in detention and met other criminals, and just had a lot of that bad influence on me when I was a kid, and then growing up, going to jail, and had a lot of bad influence on me. And man, I've had to shake that off. I mean, there's some bad, people in the world. There's some bad ideals, some, really menacing things that go on in the world, and you meet a lot of that behind bars, in one way or another. You know what I mean? And that just breeds it. That's like a breeding house for this kind of lifestyle. This very immoral, very unconscious, very sad and depressed and angry and hurt lifestyle that prison causes. And these people that go in for simple possession of marijuana, of a plant that's less harmful than tobacco, these people go in as peaceful citizens, trying to live their lives, pay their bills, raise their children. They go into prison and stay there until whenever they get released, up to 5 years for some marijuana charges, possession charges, up to 5 years, and then they get out after these 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and they get to be with their families. Well, they're not the same person, and they often end up losing their families. And the person they become is a much darker person, and the society sees it and feels it. We had 800,000 plus of marijuana possession arrests last year. That's a lot of people. It's just shy of 1 million people were arrested for marijuana. That's wild. And our society is seeing it. There's corruption all over the place. It's just corrupt. The system that we live in, with all these corporations benefiting, and the lower class, the middle class people not getting much of their share. Working a lot of hours, contributing a lot, offering their intellect and their minds and their labor, but they don't see a lot of the big slices of the pie like these corporate handout companies see, and the executives in those companies. Our system is very beneficial to the elite, but in hard times or in good times, they hold us down the best we can. We can't have medicine that would be able to be grown by ourselves, because then we couldn't buy it from Pfizer. No way we can't have our own medicine. Why would they allow us to, get something for free out of the ground that we might pay Pfizer hundreds of thousands of dollars for. Cancer medicines, all these things that are so incredibly expensive, AIDS medicines and things. Well, cannabis treats most of those symptoms, both for cancer and for AIDS, and this is proven, documented clinical studies from abroad. And they don't want us to have that. They don't want us to be able to grow a plant in our backyards that is equal in the capacity to heal as something like, some chemotherapy or some other, immune system booster, decreaser, whatever. There's all these different drugs that are so expensive. Antidepressants, marijuana is good for that, and that's one of the biggest drugs in the country. I think it is the biggest. Marijuana is good for that. Nobody has died from marijuana. But they keep us down. They want to make sure that we don't speak out too much either. Make sure that you're distracted. They want to make sure you're looking somewhere else.